a lot of people, especially right of center, say things like, you can't judge somebody on just one thing that they say. Yet, when it came to a 6-pack of Bud Light being sent to Dylan Mulvaney by some marketing intern somewhere deep in the annals of the Anheuser-Busch thing, or Miller Lite released one video, the Miller Lite thing felt a little bit more produced. It's probably gone through a few more layers. But largely, I just wondered, I thought it was interesting that the charity that a lot of people right of center ask to be given to their commentators or, their champions that are cancelled for taken out of context points. There was that Roseanne Barr bit with Theo Vaughn where she made a joke about the Jews, which was the most egregious clipping that I've ever seen from anything ever. The end of a 3-minute long bit. And they took the final 30 seconds and put it up as if it was representative of the whole thing. It was so fucking bad.
Uncensored comedian Roseanne Barr was never America's sweetheart. She was not known to toe the line with her commentary and antics at the height of the popularity decades ago. Now it appears she does care, or doesn't care. Here's what she said about the Holocaust on a recent podcast.
Nobody died in the Holocaust either. No. That's the truth.
Yeah.
It should happen. 6 million Jews should die right now because they cause all the problems in the world, but it never happened.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And I'm just shocked the host laughed at that and didn't call her out. Of course, I didn't hear the entire interview. I had a conversation with Lori Garcia.
So it wasn't rigged?
Of course not.
Yeah.
36 counties have 81 million people in them. Yeah. See? That's the truth. And don't you dare say anything against it, or you'll be off YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and all the other ones, because we have, there's such a thing as the truth and facts, and we have to stick to it. And,
it's scary.
And that is the truth. And nobody died in the Holocaust either.
No.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
It should happen. 6 million Jews should die right now because they cause all the problems in the world, but it never happened. But it never happened.
Yeah.
But I did notice nobody decided to use that same idea about, well, hang on a second, maybe this is just one small department in one small corner of one small brand's marketing push. And they gave this person, who is very unpopular on the internet, a 6-pack of Bud Light. And before you know it, Kid Rock's got an AR-15 pointed at a few cases of your drink. What do you think about?
I think, look, Dylan Mulvaney is a symbol to many people, like Sam is a symbol to many people for different things. But I think it's a slightly different issue because I don't know if you saw, but immediately after the Dylan Mulvaney controversy, the marketing executive who was responsible for this, there was a video of her talking to, I think, a reporter about the thinking behind what the idea there was.
So it seemed a little bit more thought out.
It was thought out, and her angle was, our customers are shit. That was her angle.
I think number one, I'm a businesswoman. I had a really clear job to do when I took over Bud Light. And it was, this brand is in decline. It's been in decline for a really long time. And if we do not attract young drinkers to come and drink this brand, there will be no future for Bud Light. So I had this super clear mandate. It's like, we need to evolve and elevate this incredibly iconic brand. What I brought to that was a belief in, okay, what does evolve and elevate mean? It means inclusivity. It means shifting the tone. It means having a campaign that's truly inclusive and feels lighter and brighter and different and appeals to women and to men. Mm-hmm. And representation is at sort of the heart of evolution. You've got to see people who reflect you in the work. We had this hangover. I mean, Bud Light had been kind of a brand of fratty, kind of out of touch humor. And it was really important that we had another approach. So
our customers are shit. That was her angle.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
What's a shit customer?
Well, it was just, it's just these guys who've got like a, old fashioned sense of humor, and they don't, do you know what I mean? Like, we're going to educate our customers. And I'm like, you sell beer. That's not your job. Sell them the fucking beer and shut up. Yeah. Right. And look, the trans issue for reasons that I actually think are quite understandable and obvious, is the lightning rod of our time. So I'm not surprised that caused the reaction that it did, and I understand it. I do think, and I wrote a Substack on this at the time, that perhaps the giving so much attention to it is what prompts these brands to go down this route. Obviously, with Dylan Mulvaney, it backfired for sure.
It's a roll of the dice for attention.
It's a roll of the dice for attention that I don't think they'd considered, and I think that executive ended up being fired. I do understand why people got as fired up about it as they did, because you're rewarding behavior that a lot of people would feel is the wrong behavior to reward in the public eye. Dylan Mulvaney.
I guess, you've asked me now, what I would do to combat the hate, right?
Yeah.
But what do you do?
Okay, that's a great question. Now,
You've been doing it a little longer than I have.
Another thing that you're making me realize is to not carry on in spite of others.
I'm sorry, I just realized that I'm sitting on the floor with Drew.
I'm so happy to be doing this. Thank you for joining me on the floor. The floor always feels safer.
It feels nice.
But that woman is one lady. Maybe in her interview with the reporters, she said this went all the way up, and the director, CEO, the fucking chief marketing officer or whatever was involved in this. But if it wasn't the case, I don't think, if it turned out that it was one small group in the corner, as I guessed or whatever, I don't think that the internet would have given Bud Light any more leeway. I don't think they would have said, we need to separate the art and the artist here. They've made beer for 3 decades, for however fucking long it's been around. And maybe it's right. Maybe it shows their woke bona fides. It shows that they're the man-hating, left-leaning blue-head cucks that they always were. But I don't know, it seems like a lot of the time people want, it's a smart idea to be able to say, Rogan has been in a few controversies over the last few years. Most people said, I have faith that you're telling me this is the tip of the iceberg. I've seen the whole iceberg, right? I know that there is nothing lurking deep down in the depths. Massive advantage he has is he's published 5,000 hours of content over the last decade, which means that you have a pretty good body of evidence that sits on the other side of the scale. Bud Light, you don't know much about what's going on inside of the marketing department, but I just thought it was interesting. I thought that maybe this is a time where it would be illustrative, and you should be careful about transgressing rules that you want to be enforced. So if you want the don't judge somebody by one single occurrence rule to be enforced, and then you don't enforce it, that, as you said before, that tit for tat game, it opens up, they did it. So this is playground mentality. I
understand what you mean, but I think I disagree, actually. I think the reason that people were as upset about as they are is, while these are different companies, the sense is, imagine it wasn't just Rogan who said something, but it was Chris Williamson and Triggernometry and all the other podcasters who do what we do, all at one point said the same thing. And then there was yet another example of a podcaster saying it. So when you look at the Gillette toxic masculinity ad, if you look at all the other instances where corporations put pride flags, or they replace their brand with
not
pride.
In the Middle East.
Well, obviously not. Yeah.
Do they do it in Russia? They can't do it in Russia.
I doubt it. I can't imagine why.
In Mother Russia, gay has you.
Yeah, exactly. So I think what people felt was, here again, we've got a corporation just absolutely taking the piss, lecturing the ordinary public, and thrusting these very niche issues onto what is a very, very normal household beer. And you just can't escape this shit. Yeah. That's what I think people feel.
It's kind of a straw that broke the camel's back.
I agree.
Big corporation overall. That's interesting, because what I was doing was I was taking Bud Light as a individual instance on its own. What you're saying is this is more endemic of a broader trend among big corporations.
Well, broadly speaking, if you think about what the anti-woke narrative is, the anti-woke narrative is, and I agree with very large parts of it, is that most of the major institutions, whether that be media, whether that be the civil service, whether that be the political systems, the parties, the corporations, the education system, they've all been captured or corrupted or through some other mechanism become the projectors of a certain worldview onto the public who do not share that worldview. And so when you see the toxic masculinity Gillette ad, which is like, hey, you know, you're a man, you're a piece of shit, buy our razor.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sexual harassment.
Masculinity.
Is this the best a man can get? Is it? We can't hide from it.
Sexual harassment is taking over.
It's been going on far too long. We can't laugh it off.
Who's the daddy?
What I actually think she's trying to say.
Making the same old excuses.
You know, hey, you're a piece of shit, buy our beer, etc. It sort of builds up to a point like, why is everyone telling me I'm a piece of shit? And it gets old. And, you know, and I actually, you know, particularly this anti-masculinity narrative that you see everywhere in movies, in advertising, in all sorts of different genres. I think it's really, really dangerous, because if you think about Gillette ads in the 90s, you're a bit younger than me. I don't know if you remember them, but they were
best a man can get. And it's like some blonde hot chick in like a whatever. She's like draped on her shoulder.
Actually, that wasn't the 90s Gillette ads. The 90s Gillette ads were a bunch of men being healthy masculinity. It was a man putting his tie on as he holds his baby up before he's going to work. It was a man hugging his son on his way to his wedding. It was a man protecting his wife, or, you know, it was a healthy view of men and relationships and men and women and so on.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something finally changed.
Allegations regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment.
But she says
And there will be no going back.
We know we see all the men you have to be, just how much you give, all the lives you live.
From Gillette Sensor Technology comes the Gillette Series, shaving, aftershave, and deodorant products to help a man look, feel, and be his best.
Gillette, the best a man can get.
The Gillette Series. With Gillette Sensor, it's redefining men's grooming.
And I sort of say, you know, healthy masculinity is the 90s Gillette ads. That's what it looks like. Men being responsible, men in relationships with women being respectful, being kind, but also being strong, looking after their children, teaching younger versions of men how to be men, etc. Right? And I understand why people, men and women, are fucking tired. Really, really tired of this idea that men are bad and evil. Like my wife, who's I always say my wife is completely apolitical, and as a result of that, extremely based. Right? Like, she hates this shit. And I can't tell you how many women I speak to who are very, very tired of men being demonized in this way. And so am I.
Well, especially given that a lot of those women will have sons.
And they want their partner to be good and healthy. They don't want them to be feeble. You know, so I understand the pushback against that. I really do. And I think it's necessary.